Hi, Adlan. It's good seeing you. Thanks for having us today to really hear your views and insights on what's happening in industry. So, as you know, the telecommunication industry is really undergoing a lot of change at this moment, with a lot of things on the horizon, be it 5G, changes in consumer behaviors, changes in markets themselves. In context of all of this happening, what do you see happening for the infrastructure and tower industry as a whole?
Yeah, I think if you look at the role of a tower company today, they play a lot of more of a real estate. Yeah, if you look at tower company today, focusing a lot on tower, maybe power and passive infrastructure. However, as technology evolve, as we move into 5G, I think the role of tower company will also evolve. Not so much of just a real, not just so much of a property or real estate play, but also we can look at ourselves more of a technology partner, right? And I think there's a lot of value that I think the infrastructure company will be able to play in this space, right? In our recent study, you also see that the value that your study, RB study, you also see that the value that a tower company brings to the table, to the industry, to the MNO from a capex and opex saving approximately between 16 to 35%. That accounts approximately 10 billion US dollars over by 2025. You also see that tower company brings a lot of value in terms of economic value creation to the country at an estimated value of approximately $67 billion, right? This is based on the 9 selected Asian countries, as well as I think with our focus, with TowerCo focus on sustainability, and you would also see that they will also be able to reduce between 5 to 17 million carbon footprint, right, over the next few years, right? With that respect, I think you see that the role of tower company is also infrastructure company is also changing. They will play a bigger role in terms of how we progress in terms of technology, and I think there is a lot of potential that contribution that the tower company can do to the overall industry as it can deliver that value, not only to the MNO but also to the nation as well as in terms of reducing carbon footprint to the country.
I think that's really interesting, but maybe just talking specifically about EDOTCO, what is the kind of role and position that you see yourself in this changing landscape? What are the steps that you've already undertaken in this transformation?
So from EDOTCO perspective, of course, we play in power as well as passive infrastructure. However, as technology evolves with the emergence of 5G, I think the role of TowerCo, like us as well, will definitely evolve, right? Moving probably up the value ladder to probably move into more complex solutioning, as well as becoming more technology partner to the MNO, right? And essentially for us, from tower, power and passive infrastructure, we'll probably focus a lot more on passive with the introduction of probably open RAN solution on open RAN today. There is definitely a play that we can contribute in terms of enhancing the digital connectivity for the nation. Fiber, definitely when you move to 5G is a solution. Fiber is definitely a solution that the MNO needs to go to cater for the higher traffic that they have to carry. Small cells, edge computing, as well as probably antenna as a service, and ultimately you can actually go and network as a service, right? In order to do so, as a TowerCo, we also need to see how we scale our people, scale and upskill our people up from where we are today to becoming and play into more of this complex technology infrastructure to contribute to the MNO and the overall nation.
And maybe just following up on that question very quickly, where is EDOTCO today on that journey already? So what are some of the new things that EDOTCO has brought to the market already?
So for us, is we have started to have some part of the active infrastructure. Today in most of our market, some of our markets, in Bangladesh, we are already starting to manage the active infrastructure for our customers. In most of the other markets as well, in Malaysia, in Pakistan, we are already starting a little bit of a managed service for our customers. And essentially, I think the next level, we are also looking at providing power as a service. And essentially, as the technology evolves, we're also looking at probably antenna as a service, right? So this we already started, but of course, I think we need to probably see how do we take this on an end-to-end level to make sure that we are able to deliver value to our customers.
Alright.
As you see today in the world of 5G, I mean, the MNO are probably constrained by capex, right? There's a significant investment that's required. They can offload some of this capex to the tower company and essentially convert from a capex to an OPEX model to probably also, to an extent, help monetize in terms of their investment that they require to do, right? And we think that given of where we are today as an infrastructure, as a tower co company, we definitely have the bandwidth, we definitely have the skill, and definitely we actually have the aspiration to probably play more instead of just a real estate, to be more of a technology partner to our customers.
And I guess with that change, there will be a lot of benefits, as you mentioned before. And I guess one of the areas of benefits that we talked about was about increased accessibility for the nation. And also, I think something very important for the MNOs, especially when they try to talk about the traffic explosion, the data traffic explosion that's happening, about cost per GB. I know that this is a topic that is very close to your heart. So I think it'd be quite interesting to hear from you. What have been all the different levers or the different actions that EDOTCO, as I would say one of the leading towercos in the region, has undertaken to help MNOs in their journey or their push in reducing cost per GB and improving accessibility to the internet, especially as it becomes a utility?
So reducing cost per GB is something that needs to happen, because if you look at the industry today, the yield is also declining. In fact, you see that yield are actually declining at quite a rapid pace, right? And hence, cost per GB needs to decline even faster to make sure that there's ample room or margin for profits that the MNO can deliver. And I think for us, one of the key advantage as a neutral host tower company, infrastructure company, I think we live on the pretext of infra sharing, tower sharing, right? And if typically you look in the world today, tower company essentially have a higher colo ratio. That means higher sharing as we host 2, 3, 4 customers as compared to some of the when the towers was actually sitting with the MNOs, right? So our business model is pretext on infra sharing. And hence, we believe that by us playing in this space, we are able to drive further sharing among the MNOs, and that will drive the cost per GB down quite significantly. Point number 2, I think driving cost per GB is also we need to leverage on technology, right? Today, if you talk about 5G infrastructure technology, is able to carry a lot more traffic, and within a lot more traffic and deliver a lot more traffic and bandwidth to our customers. And with that, it's actually a more efficient technology to carry data, and that will definitely drive your cost per GB down as well. Having said that, of course, I mean, MNO would also need to figure out in terms of what are the business case for 5G and all that, because essentially they need to look at whether customers are willing to pay more for 5G, for faster speed, and essentially, I mean, the cost per GB is also important to make sure that it's also affordable for the consumer as you consume more data with better technology, faster speed, and all that, right? So affordability is important, and hence that's where that we need to look in terms of driving cost per GB down. The last point is we feel that the tower company can drive cost per GB better in a way, because that's our core business, right? We strive in terms of looking at the granular cost at each and every line item to see how we can drive this cost down, right? We look at each and every one of the towers in terms of tower profitability, and really driving all the key elements of cost on a granular basis down, right? For example, as compared to with the MNO, right, there are other costs that they need to worry about, or capex that they need to worry about from the RAN, on the active components, so on and so forth, right? Whereas for us, infra is our bread and butter, and hence driving this cost down is part of our core DNA to make sure that we are able to drive margins and profitability, and hence deliver a lower cost per GP to our customers.
Maybe following up on that question, when you start talking about the move into active as a towerco, I guess there's also some space or some roles that towercos or a company like EDOTCO is also looking at in terms of driving further value for the MNOs or even for the country. In that respect, where do you see the real value that towercos can play, especially as they start moving away from pure passive sharing?
Today, if you look at active, with the introduction of Open RAN, for example, today, right, there is a disaggregation of between hardware and software, right? Typically, in the past, you actually have hardware and software being aggregated, so that is probably limited, to probably a certain core key vendors that we have in the traditional area. But with Open RAN, the disaggregation between hardware and software, it enables new players to come into the picture. And I think more IT companies, more non-traditional companies, right, to have a play in that space. And we believe, I think there's also a play for us in that space, right, with the introduction of Open RAN, and as well as with 5G, right, with the new technology as antenna as a service. There's also a play for us that we can host some of this active element that traditionally is done by the MNO, for us to do it as a service, that we make it available to many of the customers, right? With that level of sharing, we believe that's going to drive a cost down even further, and it's probably going to be a lot more efficient solution, right? And I think with those, I think ultimately we could even go a level higher to even network as a service, right? But there is an evolution with 5G, with the Open RAN, new technology that we have on Open RAN, and probably edge computing is also coming up, right? And playing an antenna as a service with the sharing as part of our key business model. We believe that we could actually play a bigger role in terms of the active space, and definitely with that we can deliver better value for the MNOs, and hence also driving cost per GB down.
And I think that's really showing the kind of areas and the extent that EDOTCO is actually looking at, going from passive, going to active, seeing all the different benefits of value it can bring to consumers and also to MNOs. I saw recently that EDOTCO also had a very strong commitments on sustainability, and I thought it'd be really nice to just hear from the horse's mouth, be it, what are all the things that you are doing and EDOTCO is doing to really improve or have an impact on the environment. I think it would be quite great to hear of the different levers you've been able to deploy and to really see what are the different ways that you've been able to drive this, not just for yourself, but also for your ecosystem.
So EDOTCO was actually established, with one thing in mind, right? Trying to drive sustainability. If you look at the name itself, it's actually trying to reflect that, right? And if you look at the color and all that, from the original intent, is always trying to drive the green agenda, right? And throughout these years, we have done a lot in terms of driving in terms of sustainability. Be it from coming out with very innovative bamboo towers, right? Rolling out solar cells in most of our sites, right? And then really looking at alternative material that probably to reduce our carbon footprint. Batteries, for example, moving into the traditional VLRA, which have got a high carbon emission, into probably a lithium battery, so on and so forth. So over the years, we've done a lot, and I think if you look at the statistic in 2020, we have delivered 57% of carbon footprint reduction, right? And I think we are going to intensify this effort as we move forward. Recently, we launched our sustainability framework, and I think I think moving forward, based on sustainability, we are going to even drive further our sustainability efforts moving forward. One of the things that from the sustainability framework that we saw was, I think we have been focusing more on scope 1 and scope 2 previously, which have delivered some of the carbon footprint reduction. Now, I think moving forward, and we know the one that's going to give you the biggest impact is on scope 3. So I think now on moving forward, we are going to focus a lot more on scope 3. Scope 3 is about driving the ecosystem, your partners, your vendors, to probably have the same objectives in terms of sustainability, driving the carbon emission down as well, right? So it's a responsibility not just for us, but for also for our partners and our vendors, and hence that's where that we need to drive this ecosystem. And with scope 3, 70% of the carbon emission is actually focused on scope 3, and we are going to focus a lot more in terms of driving this initiative forward in this coming years or so, to deliver the carbon neutrality by 2030 and net zero to support Axiata's initiative by 2050. So scope 3, we feel that is going to be an important element to achieve the goal that we've set ourselves in 2030, and to support Axiata to achieve its goal by 2050.
So I guess scope 1 and scope 2 are very much in your control because it's pertaining to the emissions that you emit. In terms of talking about moving into scope 3 and the ecosystem, what do you think it will take to really make that happen?
Well, scope 1 and scope 2 is easy, right? I mean, essentially, the way we look at it, you put the dollars and cents, you're able to deliver scope 1 and scope 2. And essentially, typically, the easy way out, that's where companies would actually drive or strive to do, right? Scope 3 is a lot more difficult, right? It requires for you to really build a process, a policy and framework to really drive your partners and vendors, right? To achieve the same objective. And essentially, not only that, you also require a dashboard to properly track in terms of carbon emission that's coming from our partners and vendors, right? Yeah. So it's a lot more work that's required, but in the longer term, this is the one that's going to deliver you the results. So it's going to be tough in the initial years, but I think we are very determined to probably pursue this. And I think we already started in terms of coming out with what are some of these key policies that we need to probably drive forward. And essentially, we also, at the end of the day, we need to choose in terms of the partners, the vendors that we want to work with. The vendors are really serious in terms of driving this environment sustainability agenda, right? As we move forward. I mean, as a responsible citizen, I think it would be great if most companies are able to drive this, not just for them, right, for the company itself, but also to drive the ecosystem, right? If all of us play our part, right, and driving this ecosystem, I think the world will be a greater place to live in the years to come.
Yeah, and I think that shows some of the stuff that EDOTCO has been moving towards and where it's trying to go towards. Considering the fact that you actually operate in a lot of different countries with different regulatory frameworks and environment, different market conditions and so forth, I guess that there must be some stuff that needs to happen also to ensure that the environment is conducive to allowing towercos to actually take a role that is bigger than what they have right now. What do you see as being some of the key areas or dimensions or improvements that need to occur to allow this kind of progress to occur?
I think definitely point number one is looking at probably a more structured regulatory regime that provides you a lot more clarity and visibility in terms of what how you progress, what you can do, what you can't do, right? I mean, this regulatory needs to be balance between the regulated and the unregulated, right? On one hand, you need regulation to probably drive you towards the right direction. On the other hand, you don't want it to be over-regulated as well, to be able to drive value or potential from the tower companies, infrastructure companies to that extent, right? So a balance would be quite ideal, and that's something with the right regulation framework that we see, with with clarity, I think, and roadmap, I think is going to be something that's important for tower infrastructure companies to come into a company. From a towerco perspective, I think, as we say, that we can do a lot more. So I think from a licensing ownership perspective, I think from a regulation, it allows us to do beyond towers with our license, and all that would probably allow us to go into some adjacencies around what we are doing today. And I think there are still a lot of value that we can contribute and play in this space to support the digital agenda of any particular countries, right? So, and you know, today with technology, with the evolution of technology, the role of tower company is also changing, and hence, that with the licensing regime that allows you to do and have the flexibility to do that, you actually promote in terms of accelerating, in terms of your digital coverage, digital infrastructure, by allowing pushing the tower company to drive this to its true potential. One of the other thing that we also need to probably see as well is in terms of the ease of doing business, right? In terms of
I've heard horror stories of those.
so whether in terms of permits, in terms of ability, that's what you see in terms of ability to roll out. We operate in 9 different countries. It will range from probably a typical 1 month to 12 months, right? And that all has to do with permitting, with your councils, right? Site acquisition, and these are not easy matters that you need to deal with, because on one hand, you have councils or state regulation that probably differs from the federal and the central government regulation, right? So there needs to be some form of alignment to make sure that these are coordinated and to facilitate some of this rollout and the ease of rolling out for these infrastructure companies, right? Some countries are better at this compared to the others, but essentially these are evolution that we see over a period of time. And I think if the countries and the government are really serious in terms of driving this digital agenda, digital connectivity, I think this is really something that they need to see and address how this could be done in a more to support the tower company or infrastructure company to be able to roll out smoothly, right? I think the other part that we also need to look at as well in terms of fair and fair environment, operating environment, to make sure that probably there's no unnecessary discrimination probably to foreign ownership, right? Probably to people with dominant market power and all that, because these are the guys that probably have invested quite significant over the years, and I think and I think they can contribute a lot more, and I think there should not be any unnecessary constraint to some of these players that have contributed significantly to the infrastructure, to the country earlier. So given that their size and all that, they will be discriminated accordingly, right? Last but not least, I think these are all capital infrastructure, capital intensive. You have to make sure that the environment that you have are also friendly to the investors as well. You have to make sure that there's no unnecessary restriction on repatriation of funds, upstream of dividend, or even given that you are competing for some of this capital as well, you probably need to make sure that there are also certain incentive, be it from tax incentive, so on and so forth, that you need to consider. At the end of the day, everybody is competing for the same funds. And I think that's where you have to make this environment a lot more conducive to the investors per se, to make sure that you are going to be the first on the list for people to invest.
What about infrastructure sharing? Is that an area that you feel regulators should actually push more?
I think you're absolutely right. Infrastructure sharing is one of the key elements, right? In terms of all the key agenda that we talk about, in terms of driving cost per GB down, right? In terms of accelerating your digital connectivity, infrastructure sharing is going to be an important part that regulators probably needs to focus on, right? I mean, we see that there are a lot of countries that's really embracing this, and you can really see the immediate benefit. One of the things that you see, right, for infrastructure tower company like us, we strive on infra sharing, and our colo ratio, essentially, if you talk about towers, for example, is closer to 2 times, right, as compared to an average of MNO in the past, where these are not their core business, right, and hence people are building parallel towers across, right, and definitely this is not an efficient way, either in terms of capital, right, to the country, and as well as to the MNOs as well, right. And with sharing, you can also do it faster, much faster, and in a more efficient way as well. And so definitely, that's one of the key driver in terms of sustaining this.
And now, maybe just to end on that note, what do you see as being the most critical thing that needs to be addressed for, I would say, the evolution of towercos to really occur within this region?
So first is, I think there's a lot more role that towerco can should be considering and looking at in terms of driving this digital agenda for the company. It's not just the responsibility of the government, but also the private sector. And I think this private sector goes down not to just MNO, but also to the tower company, right? And essentially, I think looking at what towerco have done all this while, right, looking at infra more of a real estate, I think that should really evolve into becoming in the technology space as well, becoming a technology partner to the MNO in terms of driving this forward. And essentially, with that, the towerco as well, with our business model really striving on infra sharing, I think that's going to be the key theme to probably drive in terms of this expansion of the digital connectivity at the lowest cost to serve, right, for the MNO, and more affordable data to the consumer. Because with technology, the consumption of data is going to be significant. You probably see that data consumption is going to increase by 2 to 3 times over the next 5 to 10 years, right? So, and hence, affordable data is going to be quite key, and this is going to be a key aspect in terms of driving the digital economy throughout the nation. And we think that there's a bigger role that towerco can play to deliver this value and to drive this acceleration to the country.
Okay, thank you, Adlan, for all those insights. We really look forward to where EDOTCO will be going on this journey.
Thank you.